An enterprise architect plays a vital role by aligning IT strategies with business objectives, or maybe the other way around, business objectives and the IT strategies. They ensure that technical implementations, let's say SAP solutions, that support the overarching strategic goals of the organization. And covering in that job strategic alignment, complexity management, transformation leadership, and also tools like, for example, LeanIX. So the enterprise architect is a strategic partner ensuring IT investments align with business goals to optimize agility and cost and risk management. Sounds like a tough job. And I'm really happy to welcome a really seasoned expert in the world of enterprise architecture, Theo Elzinga, as an lead enterprise architect at Friesland Campina. And Theo has, like 30 years experience in IT and business background and being a consultant for a long time. And now then the lead enterprise architect at Friesland Campina. And I'm really happy that you join us today and to talk about enterprise architecture. Welcome to Hague Café, the Netherlands.
Hague Café Nederland is your one-stop shop for all things SAP. Grab yourself a coffee or tea and join regulars Jan Penninkhof,
Goedemiddag,
and Twan van the Broek,
that's me,
with their guests as they chat about latest developments, innovations, events, or simply catch up. Let's head inside.
Welcome Theo.
Thank you.
So maybe describe in your own words, because I think there's a lot of stuff written about enterprise architecture, about enterprise architects. Sometimes it's about a guy somewhere in an ivory tower, which we don't really like the guy in the ivory tower. But what is an enterprise architect, Theo?
That's, what I can say about it is the way I interpret it, and also acting upon within Friesland Campina. Friesland Campina is a company where there's a lot of focus on doing things and doing things fast, and sometimes running very fast. So the whole idea by sitting back and think through properly what should be done, what would be the best way moving forward, that's something we need to learn. So when I came in, I thought there's no good idea to start about TOGAF, segment, all those kinds of theories and models. That will not resonate at all. So it must be something which is practical. So I said to the team, we must be clear about providing value to the company and keep it simple. Yeah. So the methods and the frameworks is for us, but what we communicate to the outside world is something completely different, is aligned with what they can expect. So we are focusing on 4 things, and that's also what we showcase all the time. First of all, we have defined a North Star, which is our IT strategy, in very simple terms. So everybody, also non-tech guys, can understand what IT strategy is all about for Friesland Campina. The next step has to do with road mapping. So where are we right now and where do we need to go to? So that's
the steps into your North Star.
Yeah, steps to the North Star. So that's the first part. The second part is, if you want to put architecture on the table and seeing as an important aspect in the things we do, we need to provide value in the sense of what we call position papers, guardrails, assessment templates, very practical stuff people can use to better understand what IT is all about. Give an example, we have a position paper on security by design. What does it mean? What is the impact? What should we do? And so we have many other, what we call position papers, but also principles. Yeah. And all also focusing on simplicity. So I used to work for a company, or not a company, the Department of Defense, where the focus was on the more principles, the better. Yeah. So we had 150 and nobody used it. Now we have 30 and that's enough. Again, keep it simple. The third part has to do with application rationalization, so the cost component. And that's an interesting one, because management is always focusing on, can we provide value with the least amount of costs? Yeah. So application rationalization for enterprise architect is a way also to get involved in those discussions and also showcasing which type of application should be redundant or is redundant, should be replaced, etc. So that's the application rationalization part. And the last one, and that's the most important one actually, how can we put architecture thinking into the heads of people who are making decisions on tools, on configurations, on everything what's IT related.
But decision makers like management or like developers and integration specialists?
All of them.
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the one inside is the decisions. Let's look when you look at developers, that's really about can we provide appropriate guidelines when we talk about software delivery. We talk about IT directors, or let's say people who make the decisions are normally not always, let's say, accustomed to really understand the technology, the technicalities behind the decision being made. So there we also want to help in supporting with technology input, which can help making the right decisions. Not only a budget kind of thing, that's what you often see. That the cheapest solution is chosen is maybe not always the right thing.
Yeah, and you come from a solid SAP background, but now you are acting as an enterprise architect within a company. So that's also covering non-SAP topics, right?
That's absolutely right. Yeah. So I started my journey in the last century, where I was 4.6C certified MSD.
Ooh, nice abbreviations from the old days.
Yeah, nice. That's talking about old days. I went out of SAP around 2005 and started to go into the integration space, integration architectures, and then I moved to data. And when I started my journey in Friesland Campina, this was last year, I got involved in our Optimus program, which is about moving to S4. And I'm leading the design authority board there. And then I got connected again with SAP guys, and to my surprise, it's still about SA16, SPRO, those kind of things. So I can still talk and discuss with the SAP guys. And by the way, that's very important. SAP has a big footprint in our application landscape. If you don't have an SAP background, it's very hard to get the right connections within the SAP community.
Yeah, is it? So I've done only SAP in my working life. So, but I can imagine if you do not have this background and you are going to draw an architecture, and then it might seem like, hey, I'm in the ivory tower, and this is how it sort of should look like, and good luck with it.
That's absolutely the case. Yeah. So that's why you need to understand SAP. You need to have done it a couple of years to really understand its complexity. Yeah. Also why it's sometimes so very different from non-SAP environments. Yeah. And I've also seen the non-SAP environments, and I understand their way of thinking. And that's very helpful because every time and again there is always an issue about not understanding each other. Okay. And then having thoughts about, but he doesn't like me, or let's just continue the way we are used to do it. Yeah. So that's very important. If you don't have that SAP background somewhere, even from if it's years ago, it's very hard to get connected.
And how do you deal with those kind of different backgrounds? As an enterprise architect, and it's a sort of multicultural environment, not cultural like with countries or religions or something, but more like, hey, I'm coming from the Microsoft or the Salesforce, or I'm coming from SAP. How do you bring that all together?
Yeah, so that's a big challenge. By the way, it's a combination of on the one hand side what you mentioned, so SAP, Microsoft, Salesforce, or any other applications, but also cultural. We have a big IT hub in Malaysia, so we have a lot of communication with Asian people as well, and we need to be careful because we Dutch are so blunt, so that directive. So it also has to do with the way of, let's say, communicating things. And when we talk about SAP, non-SAP, the easiest thing to do is just get the people in the same room, just to start with, and have them talk about their problems as they see it, and then look for commonalities. And that works. So avoiding mail, avoiding chats, got people together. Yeah. And every time and again, I see it happening. We are now working on an identity access management kind of thing, which has a lot of to do with SAP. And there are two different groups. It's a perfect example. And continuously, wait, come together, talk to each other, understand each other, and then go away.
It's almost an open door, right? Bring people together and talk to each other. But in this really fast world, when we're writing emails, chatting, but then we forget about the wheel to understand each other and to listen to each other. I think that's really important.
That's absolutely important. And of course, we are a global company, so we do a lot of virtual meetings.
Yeah.
But we also know that if we can come together in a room and talk with each other, that's always a bit more effective.
Yeah.
So it's just the way it is. We need to also recognize it. It's not always that effective. But if you make it possible to get a face-to-face meeting, that's always more productive.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned already the value that you want to bring to business. So it's about business objective. It's about IT, the hard stuff, the technical stuff. So how does this work from your perspective? You are the lead enterprise architect. How do you get into the heads of all the decision makers? Can you take me along? What kind of people are around you?
Yep. So when we started this journey again, so around 2 years ago, the first thing I did was the stakeholder map. So what are the most important stakeholders? Where are they? And how should we approach them?
Yeah.
In a business stakeholder, you need to approach completely different from an IT stakeholder. And that's why we had the idea, let's create this North Star thing as, let's say, a way of expressing from an IT perspective how we look at the world of business, and hopefully also that it resonates on the business side. And when you, for instance, look at TOGAF says you start with the business architecture and then you go to application infrastructure. And what we saw, there is no business architecture in the way TOGAF says. So we have business strategies, but they are not fully aligned or with the mindset to translate it into tech.
Yeah.
So my CIO said to me, I want to have a technology strategy. And I said, well, is there a business thing?
Yeah.
No. Okay. So
you should start with business strategy.
Exactly. So forget the TOGAF, but we need to have a connection. So what we did, it was a bit of a trick, where we said, actually the business is communicating with a lot of different stakeholders themselves, suppliers, customers, employees, and those we identified. We identified what are their requirements, what do they want from a business perspective, and that we translated to actually it's nothing more than we need a capability or a technology which supports commodity processes, differentiating process and innovating process, just the good old Gardner in the most simple form. And based on that, we said, then we need to do a couple of things in technology. And that translated into our 6 technology pillars, focusing on infrastructure, on data, on processes, in a simple way. And when you look at the North Star, and we talk about with the business, they understand, okay, so essentially, this is indeed what it's all about. And of course, we talk about business capabilities and those kind of things. Yeah. And they understand. They can also understand, so now that's the tech. Now it becomes a bit difficult, but I understand the philosophy.
Okay.
And that's enough. So for the business side, when I present the North Star, it's always like, hey, okay. Understanding what this black box IT is all about.
Does it also help them to make sure what the business case is, or to explain what the business case and what the value it will bring? Because if they can define that properly, it will also help you in making decisions on technology side.
Yeah. So let's give an example. AI. AI is now all over the place. Yeah. And the problem with AI
talking about something disruptive.
Something disruptive. And talking about AI, you and me, but anybody can go to the internet and find something great and say, let's implement the thing.
Yeah.
So how can we ensure that the right AI is going to be applied? And if you leave it to the business, and it is all low code, no code, so why do they need to involve IT? They can do it themselves. I said, of course, black and white. Then the question is it effective enough, yes or no? And so it's always the silver bullet idea. Hey, that's something new. We used to have microservices. That was now microservices. They're changing the whole world. Well, we saw that's not the case. And for AI, it's the same thing. So we one of the position papers we have is about artificial intelligence and how to look at from a business perspective. So forget the technology, but focus on where can we automate things with data, and then we come into business capabilities, business processes, value streams as an input. So let's say a top-down input, like where should we focus upon? And the other one, which has a technology impact, of course, is just process mining. So can we already see how processes are executed based on process mining technologies, more a bottom-up approach.
Yeah.
And then you can see, we see from top down, this is a space where we need to focus, like order to cash and those kind of things. And what does our process mining environment says about this value stream?
Yeah.
And based on that, you don't say let's automate. No, is a redesign of the process already good enough?
Yeah. Do you use Signavio, for example?
Yes.
Okay, so Signavio can have also the possibility. Hey, your process is running like this, and maybe I would look at automation of a specific process, or go for a best practice process for a specific industry. Is that also what you're mining? Brings?
Yes, no. So with our Optimus program, we want to standardize as much as possible, where possible, with regards to SAP. Some process we are really differentiating, so we want to also, we also still use custom coding for those kind of things. And we have Celonis for the process mining. So in Signavio we have our process models. The Celonis is really capturing the data to see what the facts are. And then of course there's a nice match between the facts coming from Celonis and what we expected, written down in Signavio. And then of course we have an interface that we have all kind of variants there. And that's important to put into place. Because I'm stepping down, I take a sidestep.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Process modeling was seen 15 years ago as we need process modeling so then we can better configure SAP. That's still the case, but there's much more at stake. The process models provide our process parameters, which we need to use when we go into the agentic AI space. So process modeling becomes much more important with AI coming in, specifically agentic AI.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that? I think process modeling is important, but why is it important for agentic AI? Or
just given a very simple example, and it's also a sample I saw. Open up a browser and you start prompting. The whole idea also, in a year of 3-4, maybe we much more prompting ourselves into the backend systems than going to applications with screens.
Yeah, they now sometimes say AI is the new UI.
AI is a new UI, and let's not call it prompting, because prompting I already heard is already starting to move away. We have something new, that's all fine. So conversational AI. Yeah. So we're moving into more conversational AI. And I had a perfect example. I asked, how many days do I have left? You have 7 days left. Do you want to...
not in your life, I hope.
Not in my life, sorry. my 3 days off.
Oh, okay, phew.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Sorry. Wrong button. Sorry. Yeah.
And then the question came back, do you want to book vacation? And yes, of course. All right. When and etc. And at that moment, in the background, the workflow is started. But you need to know the process parameters for the AI to understand this is the type of workflow which need to be triggered to get the right answer to the end user. Yeah. And that's the process parameter. We can call it workflow parameters. But I see in general those kind of characteristics of the process is the input for the policies for an AI agent to do its thing automatically. Yeah. So that process modeling becomes much more important than ever.
Yeah. Okay. Which is good, because processes is also something that, of course, you define also within the enterprise architecture. Yep. But you also mentioned data, and I think data, as if you talk about AI, nobody, at least in our world, a lot of people also talk about data, but I'm not sure if the business really understands how data has always been important, but it gets even more important if you are going to use it in AI solutions.
Yeah, absolutely true. And so it's not only the business, it's also the vendors. Yeah. The vendors providing models, but they also assume that the data is there, or even worse, that we need to put our data in their environment to run the models. That's also one of the architecture principles we want to avoid. We want to have the models as close to the data as possible, minimizing data traffic, specifically outside of our own organization. What was the question? Sorry.
Yeah, so the relevance of data, and if you look at at AI, but also what I think you have done enterprise architecture within Friesland Campina. You're not done. You're doing enterprise architecture, and you have a team around you, and there is guidance framework, as your Guardian Rails and position papers, but then AI comes in, which is really disrupting. How do you then put AI in your framework?
There are a number of things we take into account. First of all, and then coming back to the data part, responsible AI. Where we really focus on the data trust, but also data ethics and also data legislation. We have AI legislation we need to take into account. So we have a responsible AI community where every request for an AI solution is running through that board.
That is within Friesland Campina.
Within Friesland Campina, to ensure that the data which need to be provided to let the model run is within our guiding principles on ethics and legacy.
So you really take it seriously?
Absolutely take it seriously. And it has to be done because there's a big risk there. Yeah. And the risk has also to do with the fact that data consumption, specifically in the unstructured space, we used to have all kind of documents with the ability to put labeling on it and metadata, but nobody does it. It's not a human thing to open up a PowerPoint and then put in the right metadata. So how do we avoid that if a model is going to run, that it's also hitting documents which should not be part of that model? Yep. And I always make the joke, let's see if if our GPT kind of model, I can ask the salary of my boss. Yeah, let's see if that's going to work out. Yeah. So the effect of what it has on data and data labeling is becoming very, very important. The fact is not a human thing. We need to do something there. So we're putting AI in there to get the data labeling done for us based on, of course, on the content, etc. Yeah. So that's let's say the data part. Then the next question is, how do we funnel the demand? So how do we know that the business or IT wants to use an AI solution? On the IT side, it's pretty clear because we have the processes in place. When there is a demand for it, then we have all kind of process to check and assess. And we have something called the AI Technology Council, where we also assess the technology itself. Is that aligned with our strategy, which is in the North Star? Yeah. And that's about buy versus build and those kind of things. Still, the problem is, you and me as an end user, we can go to the internet, we do a subscription via credit card, and we can start working. Yeah. The shadow IT, as we call it, which is not really right, because it has a very negative connotation. But we know, and that's also a human thing, that also business users they can start using it. So what we're doing there is that we give the possibility to have that solution being assessed by IT, which then gets a flag, it's IT approved. Yeah. And so in that way also luring, let's say, business users into, let's have this check. And the check is all about the data and the data trust and those kind of things. Yeah. That's what we started to introduce, and we are getting there. Yeah.
But because if you as a T then facilitate business, which is should also be the role, of course, of IT, and not saying it's not allowed, it's not allowed, it's not allowed. So and then you also train the business how to be responsible with those kind of new tools.
Yeah, and responsibility is indeed not only the tools but the data behind it. You're also responsible as an end user that the data being used is not going outside of Friesland Campina if it's flagged as confidential or whatever. So it also puts a responsibility to the end user, but we need to make it clear. Yeah, and that's our goal. We need to make clear what are the risks if you just use something from the internet for the company. Yeah,
but then do you also, because I think you just mentioned that you have your own model, that like a ChatGPT kind of model within Friesland Campina with your own data, trained with your own data? Or
yeah, so we have quite a lot of models running. Okay. But what we are aiming for, and that's more still in the strategy kind of thinking, is we want to move to a unified experience for any user. And until now, it was always a thing. We want to have unified experience, and what you see, the unified experience is often limited to the platform. SAP is a unified experience, Fiori and those kind of things. Salesforce. So where is the overarching unified experience? And specifically in a conversational AI. So we are looking at some kind of system of engagement where we have the interaction with the end user, and then it's going to be, let's say, connected to our backend systems. And that's what we are now looking for. But the models are everywhere. So we have models in the platform. And of course, we want to utilize models in the platform if they are available, because then we don't have to think about non-functionals like security and those kind of things. It's in the platform. The moment there is a business which says, we have something great, which really adds value, but it's not in the platform, then we agree with the vendor that we are going to use it within the North Star principles. So can we put the model on our systems, etc. And also, let's say for a year, because the platform is always lagging behind a bit. And the moment the platform provides the same model, then we want to take out the small vendor, because it's now a commodity kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. And so that sounds like that you already adjusted your framework to incorporate also the AI solutions within Friesland Campina. Is it? So I always thought that enterprise architects made some kind of guidance and then they want to stick to that for the coming 3 or 5 years. But you are open to changes that are actually happening in the business world.
Yeah, that's really also something I needed to learn. Looking at my age and experience, 20 years ago, you could talk about even 10-year end state kind of things. Yeah. Then it moved to 3 years, 5 years, but with AI, it's even going faster. Yeah. So I really like to make a difference between applications and business logic and those kind of things. So really creating the data, which is still a little bit traditional in that sense, that can last pretty long. Yeah. And everything what has to do with data, these life cycles are much, much shorter. Yeah. And we need to balance it out.
Yeah, okay.
Café Nederland.
And so we talked a lot about AI, but let's go back a little bit to the core role of an enterprise architect, enterprise architecture, and then how do you, because I'm coming more, I've been an ABAP developer for a long time, and I'm coming from the technical world. I always like to call myself a solution architect, but which is really different than an enterprise architect. How do you, as an enterprise architect, make sure that your ideas or your thoughts, your North Star is being translated into the right solutions?
Yeah, it's also to do with the way we organized ourselves, not rocket science, enterprise architecture, domain architecture, and solution architecture. These are, let's say, the 3 levels. I have a lot of conversation with my domain architects, and that's, let's say, thinking about concepts, position papers, those kind of things.
And the domain is the functional domain.
Yeah. So we have a supply chain, commerce, but also ETS. So we have really domain, functional and technical domains, and they have a very close connection to their solution architects. So the domain architects plays a crucial role, because he or she needs to translate, let's say, the more conceptual thinking and logical thinking into concrete things, because the solution architects, they know their systems, they know what to do with it. What we need to ensure, and of course we do it together, is that our solutions architects are not only looking at their solution alone, but always in the context of an end-to-end process or whatever else.
They have a broad vision.
Yeah. So the domain architects should also trigger and challenge the solution architects to think more outside in than they do. So solution architects have the tendency to think inside out, which is of course a logical thing. And my role is much more outside in. So it's on domain level, it comes together, because at the end of the day, I want to talk with a domain architect about principles the same way I want to talk with an IT leader about principles or about architecture. I don't want to have this ivory tower kind of behavior, but it doesn't make any sense. So also there we need to show the added value, not only to the developers but also to the architects.
Yeah.
No? Yeah. And that's a continuous thing. And we are getting better in it, but lots of things to do there.
Yeah. So that means probably that you frequently meet up and think about maybe what the daily operation is, but also like something disturbing as AI.
Yeah.
That you also need to align on.
Yeah. So it's almost 80% of my time is about communicating.
Okay.
And alignments. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It's a lot about, but I think our thinking is pretty okay now. So where we want to go to and how. But to get it done, that needs a lot of discussion and stuff. Yeah.
Is there a practical example that you can share with us today that there is some business challenge and this is how we looked at it from an enterprise architectural side, and then it went to the domain architect, to the solution architect, and to the final solution, and made hopefully the end users happy?
Yeah. So in general, when when we started the journey, we saw that there was an architecture approval in the demand funnel process. But the problem was it was after the budget decision was made.
Oh, okay.
So if a budget decision is made, then you're too late. So the first thing we said, we want to have assessments up front. And the first reaction was, of course, yeah, but it takes time, and we don't have time.
Yeah,
that's absolutely right.
We need to hurry up.
We need to hurry up. So there we started involving, and like, okay, let's do one thing. We see you have a business problem, and you already have a solution. That should not be the way it should go. There should always be a comparison between at least 2 solutions and a maximum of 5. And we need to take into account, can we do it in our existing platforms?
Yeah, can we standardize?
Can we standardize, yeah. So we have a rather simple, I think it's still simple, assessment. It takes 4 things into account. Functionality, that's always the focus. The focus on functionality. Non-functionals, and they are complete translation of the North Star principles. Complete, one-on-one. Yeah. The third one, of course, is cost. So license cost, development cost and run cost. And the other one is people. So project management, resources, those kind of things. And we brought it back in a very simple assessment form. Everybody understands. Yeah. And then we started this discussion. Why are you going for solution A? What does it mean from the non-functional perspective? Okay. So there we have now quite a lot of solution assessment done this way, and that goes to the Enterprise Architecture Board for endorsement. Yeah. Endorsement we don't approve because we don't have a budget. We endorse. You can see it as an advice. Yeah. And that advice goes back to the steerco, and based on the steer, they will say, all right, based on what I saw, what the experts are saying, we are going to. And we have a couple of examples where it started with the cheapest solution ever. Where at the end of the day, we said, no, we should put more investment in the solution itself because it's better. Yeah. And then it started in the implementing, and then we talk about the guidelines and configuration. So we want to be upfront in the start, really very close to the ball. And the moment let's go into implementation phase, I want to ensure that the solution architects also have this in mind. Why did we choose this thing anyway, and what does it mean from a configuration point of view?
Yeah. Okay. So you support your colleagues and your business and IT also in a way of thinking that you wanted to make sure that they have crossed every box on, hey, did you think of this, did you think of that, and not coming, oh, this is the solution and let's implement it.
No, that's exactly the case. And the nice thing about this set of criteria, there are 4 angles. And the scoring is not science. The scoring is 1, 3 or 5. Not 2, not 4. It's just 1, 3 and 5 with a color. So from a distance you can already see, hey, this solution in that part is green, but in that part is red. While the other solution is just the other way around. Okay, now we have the proper discussion. And it helps.
Yeah, okay. And is there like tooling that you use? We have an integrated tool chain at SAP that's also, for example, covering Signavio, but also LeanIX, which is positioned for enterprise architects. Is that something that you use as well? Yeah. So we started using it last year. Okay. And because for multiple reasons, but one of them is all our applications, the configuration of it from the systems themselves are in the CMDB. And the CMDB is really meant to support our incident management processes. So the CMDB?
The CMDB is the place where you store all information of applications for dev, test, production, the hardware used, the software used, really for if there's an incident, then you can trace back what are we talking about. That's in ServiceNow. That is our system of record for this type of things. So I wanted to have an overview. How many business applications do we have? And in CMDB, there's really quite a lot of records, but there are maybe one application, but then about production, test, dev, software stuff. So I want to have a distinct count. Yeah. So I got a distinct count, and then I looked at, wow, that's quite a lot of applications. We need to manage this much more than we do right now. So I want to classify them. Is this an application we need to invest in, or can it be retired? So the Gartner time stuff. And also business criticality and those kinds of things. And we had this huge Excel sheet with a numerous amount of lines and about 50 columns. Yeah. Then we have the Optimus program coming in, and then we said, hey, but we can also utilize LeanIX, which is part, of course, now of the stack, which we are going to use for the migration of S4, but also for, let's say, maintenance of the other applications as well, on enterprise architecture level. So they will do assessments on the status of an application, road mapping, and those kind of things. And that's what we started, and I must say I'm really glad we have that, because now we get much more control of what is happening in the application space. It also means we have now a procedure in place that if an application is registered in the CMDB, and it is done because otherwise it cannot be serviced, that we now have a trick. Oh, wait, a business application, the system of record of an application is LeanIX. So we have this connect. And so we have the whole tool chain from LeanIX to Signavio and Cloud Alum, and the Tricentis, the whole bunch we have in place.
All right.
To have an end-to-end support of the whole design to run process.
Looks like you are the ideal student in the class from SAP. With all
we
the
have a lot
tools.
of conversation with SAP with regards to the requirements we have and how to fit it in. Yeah.
Did it also provide you, because I've played around a little bit with LeanIX and I really like, so you have the central database with all applications, but all objectives, and then you run some standard reports and you get a lot of insights. Did it also bring your brought you a little bit insight that you didn't have before?
Yeah. So when you want to have a visualization on your application portfolio, and again, there are really many applications. The first thing we did was get the applications in and connect them to business capabilities.
Yeah.
There also we want to be smart, because when you look at the reference architecture of SAP on business capabilities, there are 700.
Yeah.
So I don't want to have 700. I want to have around 80, because that can fit on one slide.
Yeah.
So we use level 2. That's only, let's say, the 80. And of course, level 1, which gives more grouping of manufacturing and those kind of things. So all our applications in LeanIX are connected to a business capability. So you can already imagine the first report you do, how many applications do we have for business capability A? And then you can see already, we're quite a lot. Why? And then we can start doing the investigation. And of course, we have global applications, local applications. This one is flagged as local, but on the same business capability, can we globalize it? The other thing is, a lot of applications we knew were technical names. Nobody understood what the thing did. So every application in LeanIX also have a description, so we understand what it does.
Yeah.
Link to a capability. And the next step we want to do is connecting them via interface definitions. And of course, where is it used? So within the business groups. And that's for us is enough for now. Because now already we can create all kind of slicing and dicing on this data.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's interesting to see that in practice. Really nice. Okay.
Hanecafé Nederland.
I think we can talk for hours, but also one other topic, Theo, like keep the core clean, something that I'm work a lot with, and also try to explain to customers what it actually means. Is that also something that's running as a topic in your organization?
Yeah.
How do you keep the core clean?
How do we keep the core clean? Now, first by defining what is meant by clean core. And so when we started the journey, there were very many different interpretations of clean core. Yeah. So we started looking for what is this really all about, and we found a fantastic document within the SAP environment. 285 pages.
That looks like an SAP document.
An SAP document with tier 1, 2 and 3 and whatever. Very nice. Yeah. So that we cannot communicate this one. So create a position paper, which is nothing more than a summary of those 280 pages. We brought it back to 25. Okay. So in essence, we had talked, when we saw this, a clean core is nothing more than take, look at codes which you need to recreate or do something with to make upgrades stable. So it's about clean core. In our definition, is nothing more than upgrade stability.
Okay,
that was the first step. The next step we did: how do we know which code objects we need to do something with? Yeah. So we've defined the decision tree based also on what's in the document itself. What are the actual objects? So it was about, of course, modifications, enhancement, user exit, bodies, whatever. Yeah. And we categorized them. And then we said which of these is green in the sense that we keep it as it is, because the risk of upgrade instability is low. Then we have, of course, amber. It's a bit in the middle, and we have the red ones. Yeah. And the red ones are the important ones. And the red ones we are also now focusing upon in our migration to S4 to clean up the red ones as far as we can. Yeah. And as far as we can is also of interest because this is the whole idea about tier 2 and 1 and 3. And the discussion I heard, first of all, clean core was no code anymore. That's not true. Yeah. The second was only in BTP. That's not true. So that's the tier 3. We also have tier 2. And then this discussion is we have a private cloud. Everything we do is still in tier 3. So what is the value of moving the whole bunch to tier 2? ABAP cloud. Yeah. Of course, you can imagine for new developments you want to go the route, but for our complete stack, which is now in tier 3, what's the investment and what's the business value? Yeah. So there we say we keep it where it is, and in our tier 3 we do our refactoring as much as possible to become clean core compliant. Yeah. Some of the things we cannot do because there's no alternative, but that's a limited amount. Yeah. So that's clean core. That's also what we publish to our environment. We have a position paper again on clean core that was still too technical, so we created another one, which from 25 goes back to 5, which creates the essence of what custom coding is. So we allow custom coding, full stop. Yeah. And what clean core means. And that's just 6 slides. Okay. And that's really also, I hope to use it to explain to the business, but still too techy. Yeah. But for people who are not understand really, let's say, the technologies behind it, it's a very interesting insight for them as well. Okay, this is what clean core is all about. Problem is that SAP now also have some mixed communications because I was at Sapphire. I was at the Sapphire in Madrid, and it was a nice talk, and it was about clean core, and then it was a balloon. It was about Signavio, Linux, whatever, on the umbrella of clean core, and that's disturbing for us because we just said to everybody, clean core is a coding kind of issue. The rest is just business transformation. Yeah. Let's not call it clean core.
Yeah. So what you do, I think it's better that we are going to position it within the RISE proposition, because RISE was initially a sales package and now it's a transition methodology, which is I think better to explain. And clean core comes with 5 layers: coding, of course, accessibility, but it also comes with data, also important. But the processes and governance and integrations, and that makes it difficult umbrella maybe to understand. But what I really like what you're doing, Theo, is that because if you just run a readiness check or if you just run a tool in the ABAP test cockpit, then you get a list of 100 components that are red flagged and that you do not know where to begin or where to start. But with your filtering and categorization, that helps you to, okay, this is what we're going to leave. For now, we're going to on-premise, S/4HANA on-premise, and of not on-premise, private cloud. And that helps you to tackle the problem, because if you just look at 300 pages of items that you need to change, then nobody's going to create any business value out of that.
No, plus actually when we did the investigation on custom code, we saw again 6 Excel sheets floating around. Yeah. So we
6 different ones probably.
Of course. So we agreed we need to have one source, and source is ATC. Okay. Unfortunately, ATC is also a bit. It's not stable in that sense. That's there are changes made, but that's fine. Yeah. So we said that's our basis. So we created a download and said this is our current basis. Yeah. We did an analysis on top of it with this red, green, and blue. We found out the findings, and then we started planning. When are we going to remediate these findings? And that's an execution part. And there we use different Excel sheets. Now we have one. So now we created this baseline, and we have also a process. Every month we run the ATC, and then we can see differences. And differences can be something has been done on the clean core. That's really good. But we can also see maybe ATC itself put in some extra findings which weren't there. That's also fine. And of course, we do new developments. So we want to ensure that also new developments are according to clean core. And we can see it directly coming in. So then we can also have a measure to ensure that our developers doing the right
They
thing.
understood what they need to do. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was a quite a horrible exercise to get the baseline right, and everybody agreed on these are the objects and the findings on the objects. But we have it now in place. We have the KPIs in place, and then we can really monitor and govern all activities done regarding to clean core and newer developments.
Yeah, but that's really interesting because you really brought it to your daily life and to run this report on a frequent basis,
Yeah.
on a weekly basis or something.
We do it monthly.
Monthly, but that's really interesting. And so your North Star is not only describing we're going into the cloud or but it's also how you go into the cloud and how you go on with new developments, because what you just mentioned, you allow custom developments for innovative processes or for distinguishing processes. Hopefully not for the commodity part, but
That's correct.
yeah. But that's interesting that you then train and educate your IT staff.
Yeah. That's the only way to show value.
Yeah.
And in this case, my only involvement was I heard the parties having discussions because of different Excel sheets kind of thing. Let's come together.
Yeah.
What is a logical thing to do? One baseline, and then I don't know the details, so everybody can say to me whatever about what is green amber or I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do trust the person who we said you're the owner of the thing.
Yeah.
It's your thing, and that's the way it works. So it's at the end of the day a collaboration thing. That's what it's all about.
Communication, collaboration.
Team effort.
Yeah.
And,
Don't stand in your ivory tower and look down. But
it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I've done that, and it didn't provide me any value and also not motivation.
no, okay. It's very insightful episode, Theo. Thank you very much. Maybe to close up, then, what is your advice to other companies that maybe look at architecture as more as a technical thing, like solution architecture, as we discussed before? What is your advice to bring in the enterprise architect at the right level?
Yeah, I'm afraid I'll say a couple of open doors.
Yeah, but that's okay.
Yeah, the most important one, and that's in every book, you need to have top management buy-in.
Yeah.
You need somewhere. My CIO fully trust me, give me the room, and without that support, I'm getting nowhere.
Yeah.
So that's the first one. The second one is make clear for yourself what is the value you're going to bring and when. So you need to be patient because you're stepping on a train which is running.
Yeah.
And you don't step on a train to pull in the brakes. The only thing you want to do is gradually move it to the direction where it should go to. So, or the ocean steam or whatever you call it. Be very clear on your stakeholders. So who are the stakeholders who are interested in the story you're telling and who can also be your how do you call it? Also presenters of the thinking.
Yeah,
that's important. And again, think big, but keep it small. But have the plan in your mind. It's in your head. This is the way we're going to do this year, the year after, and knowing it's a struggle. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a nice closing. And bring the people together and bring them into one room and don't try to fight each other, but work together collaboratively. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Theo.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. And you just mentioned in the briefing that you're also going to share your story at an SAP event.
Yes, that's in. I think it's in November. I think it is. Yes.
What is the event called?
It's an EMEA event about Linux.
Okay.
It's in The Hague.
Okay.
So also present part of what I just shared with you.
If you want to hear more about it, learn more about it, then join that event. And thanks for coming today. Then also thanks Kadir, who is in the back supporting us in the live stream and the recording. And I forgot to say that Jan is not available today because he's on a well-deserved holiday. But thanks Jan, and he will be in the next episode. Thank you for listening in. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Theo, for coming over. And see you next time.
And that's a wrap for this episode of HANA Café Nederland. Jan and Tom loved having you here. Drop us a line if you have any thoughts or want to be on the show. We'll be back soon with more SAP goodness. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.